Welcome back, friends. We are back with episode 3, Self Love. My name is Teresa, a second year specialist in psychology, major in cognitive science, and minor in Buddhism, psychology, and mental health. And today I am joined with.
Hey folks, my name is Charm, and I'm a second year as well, doing a specialist in psychology. For those who are just joining us, Felt That is brought to you by the University of Toronto Mental Health Association. We discuss topics that are hard to talk about casually in our daily lives, from self-love to relationships to managing stress.
As a primarily student run podcast, we are not professionals attempting to provide advice in any shape or form. Our main goals are to spark conversations, consider different perspectives, and just generally be there to let you know that we felt that.
So, self-love, huh? Do you love yourself, Teresa?
I do, actually. But, nowadays I feel like self-love is almost like a buzzword. I see it everywhere on bottles, tote bags, advertisements, campaigns. My question is that, do we really know what self-love is? How do you define self-love?
Well, for me, self-love comprises many things. But the biggest part is having enough of that respect for yourself that even when someone doesn't like you or value you or treats you badly, you can gladly walk away. And you know you
Hmm.
deserve better.
Oh, so like knowing your worth and being brave enough to uphold that?
Yeah, that's my definition of self-love at least. But it can be difficult to uphold that at times for sure. What
Mm-hmm.
about you? What's self-love for you?
Hmm. I feel like for me, self-love is the balance between treating yourself with kindness and treating others with care, all the while putting yourself as the priority. Having said that, my take is definitely an understanding I gained throughout my life so far. So I'm just wondering, is there a story behind yours, Charm? Of course, if you don't mind sharing.
It's actually funny that recently I've already been actively reflecting about this topic a lot. I've been telling my friends that it took me a lot of time and relationships to finally understand the fact that doing things that make you feel happy and fulfilling, no matter what that may be, comes before trying to please other people and forcing yourself to accept certain situations or ways of treatment that, makes you question or even dislike yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We hear this all the time and kind of acknowledge it, but it's a whole other deal of putting this into practice in your own life. At least for now, I am putting the effort into doing that.
I love that so much for you. It must have been a long time coming. So I'm glad you persevered and are where you are right now.
Yeah, well, what about you, Teresa?
You know, one of those nights when you cannot sleep and just end up thinking,
Hmm.
yeah, here are my thoughts not too long ago. People know me as someone very self-assured, someone with a lot of self-love, confidence, but I started thinking about what is it that really makes me love myself. I questioned if I strip off the things I used to define myself one by one, will I still love myself? For example, something relevant to me right now. If I am not academically stable, or if I don't have my privileges, will I still love myself the same? The main takeaway from this pondering is that it's important to know that we're always growing. We're always in a flux. So, part of self love for me is finding the commonality between the frames that hopefully I love.
Wow, I really love that thought. And it's interesting to think about yourself as a whole, detached from the things you own to discover who you really are, what you really want for yourself, and whether you can accept that version of you.
Yeah, I don't know. I just love thinking about the nuances of things. Anyways, I see that both of us have in common the narrative of putting ourselves first, and this raises something I'm always curious about. Do you learn to love yourself first, or do you learn it after loving others, or even after being loved by others?
That's a really good question. At least at this stage of my life right now, I do believe you have to love yourself to a certain degree and accept the different parts of yourself before you can love someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, actually, someone said this to me that was really insightful. You can't really find the right person until you become the right person for yourself. However, for me, that realization only came after me constantly trying to love others and making them happy while neglecting my own needs and aspirations, which may be a common path for many of us out there. But at the end of the day, we come to learn to appreciate our strengths and accept our flaws.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Teresa? What do you think?
I believe it's a mix of everything, and it really depends on personal circumstances. Although I don't remember the exact process, my first exposure to love was probably the love I received from my parents and family. Somewhere along the way, I got into a romantic relationship in which I realized that I need to spend more time and effort on myself before trying to love others. Basically, I learned the hard way that if I don't love myself enough, I'll just hurt both me and the other person in the relationship.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, I'm sure there are lots and lots of people with vastly different experiences than us. What I hope to be true for everyone is that they have a support system that they can fall back to in navigating their life's intricacies.
Yeah, pat yourself on the back. We have to acknowledge that it is not easy to reach where we are right now. At least we are comfortable with ourselves to a certain degree. Well, we've talked a lot about our journeys and reflections on self-love, but what about the ways to ease into loving oneself more?
Personally, I started with acknowledgement, then respect, acceptance, then slowly ease into gratitude for myself.
Yes, those are really important practices to learn to accept and love yourself. Another thing is also aligning with oneself, which is kind of hard to explain, but basically it's accepting a realistic version of yourself instead of an idealized one,
Mm.
reflecting on what kind of life you want and working towards a version of yourself that you will come to love. But Teresa, we talk a lot about how to conceptually ease into self-love, but what about the practice of it?
Oh, that's a good point to bring out, Charm. While I believe the mindset is the most important first step, examples of putting it into practice are taking breaks between study sessions, acknowledging that you did well at the end of the day, saying no to other people when you are not comfortable with something, or even thanking yourself for staying healthy. Find your own ways to practice self love in your daily life, whether it is through self care, self acknowledgments, or self gratitude. What do you think about this, Charm?
I do agree with you on incorporating those practices in our daily life, especially amidst our busy schedule. It's so easy to get distracted and overwhelmed by all the things happening around us. So, other ways to practice self-love can be really living at the moment and focusing your energy at the present, rather than constantly worrying about things that already happened or might happen in the future. This way, we can limit the time and energy spent thinking about hypothetical situations that will end up making us more anxious and
Mm-hmm.
focus on what needs to be done right now. I try to remind myself to do this all the time, but yes, it surely takes time and mental effort.
Totally. All that said, though, we know that too much or too little of anything can be maladaptive. The same goes for self love. Some people may grow too self absorbed. To a certain degree, having some self awareness is important so that you know when the love you have for yourself starts to reflect negatively on your relationship with others. When that time comes, it may feel like you are just maintaining a relationship with yourself. It happens, it's valid. but acknowledging this and being willing to work on it may be beneficial for you and those around you in the long run.
On the other hand, some struggle to love themselves. You mentioned earlier that self-love seems like a buzzword. I see that too, and due to the multitudes of campaigns of self-love, it feels like we are prompted to always be positive about ourselves. That is so not true, however, because being optimistic and positive all the time are just not what life is for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
Part of self-love is being honest with what you feel. Instead of forcing yourself to be positive all the time, embracing your vulnerabilities and all the different emotions you feel would likely make you feel more grounded and supported by yourself.
That is such a lovely way to put it. I love that we both have our own journeys, and I am sure that even now we are still constantly working on how to better love ourselves. To those listening in, wherever you are in your self love journey, each and every one of your journey is unique and personal. There is no one size fits all approach to achieving it, despite what influencers and campaigns in the media tell you.
Mhm.
Your journey might involve a lot of trial and error to help figuring out what you want, but your own morals and beliefs are what will help you stay consistent and motivated.
Absolutely. Different things work for different people. We should go for what works best for us as long as we are taking care of ourselves and are in a good mindset. Because at the end of the day, the relationship you have with yourself will always be the most important one.
100%.
Working on self-love can be difficult and take a long time to finally comprehend it, but it's definitely an investment and a journey.
And with that, because everyone has their own story, I truly believe that everyone will ultimately have their own definition of self love. It's just like how you have to figure out your dynamics with a partner. You will develop your own love language towards yourself.
I love that. Well, folks, this is all the time we have for you in this episode. Not to worry if you still want to hear more from us. We currently already have 2 episodes out, so feel free to check them out.
And if you're excited for our upcoming discussions on a variety of mental health topics, we would really appreciate it if you could give our podcast a like and follow. Check out our Instagram account at UofTMHA to learn more and maybe join us for socials and sessions like this in the future.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We look forward to chatting with you soon.
Woohoo! Cool,
Yay!
cool, cool.